Hey, fabulous sixth graders. How are you guys doing? Today, for First Chapter Friday, I want to share an oldie, but one of my all time favorites. It is a nonfiction text. If you love Gary Paulson, this is a great book for you. I have it in my room, and I'm sure some of the other teachers do as well. Mine is the older copy of this, but it's called My Life in Dog Years, and it's Gary Paulson sharing some very important animals that he has had in his life that have helped him kind of overcome obstacles or maybe that have taught him something. So each chapter is kind of divided up by a specific dog. And I'm going to read to you today Cookie. So Gary Paulson is a man who enjoys the great outdoors, and a lot of his dogs have something to do with his life being outdoors. So this is Cookie, and it's the first chapter of My Life in Dog Years. So here we go. Cookie, a dedication. Though I ran sled dogs for close to 10 years, did some 22,000 miles with them, this book is not about sled dogs or running them. They were truly wonderful, and I've written of them in other books. This book is about other dogs in my life and other times. I am, and I say this with some pride and not a little wonder, a dog person. I make no excuses for unabashedly loving them, all of them, even some that have bitten me. I have always had dogs and will have dogs until I die. I have rescued dozens of dogs from pounds, always have five or six of them around me, and cannot imagine living without dogs. They are wonderful and I think mandatory for decent human life. All that said, there are some dogs that are different, special in amazing ways. Josh is one, and you'll read about him later in this book. Cookie was another. Cookie was my lead dog when I first started to run dogs, and she was also my lead dog in my first Iditarod sled dog race. She took me from Anchorage to Nome, Alaska when most people, including me, thought I couldn't do it. But she was more. She was a good friend, a kind of dog sister or dog mother to me. And while I've written much of her in other places, she belongs in this book too. Cookie was given to me by a man who thought she was so sick she couldn't run any longer. She merely had worms, and when I wormed her, she became a wonderful sled dog and then a wonderful lead dog. I did not set out to race dogs. I used them for work. I brought in wood with them, went to the laundromat in town with them. It was grand to tie the dogs up to the parking meter and watch people jump as they walked by, and trap with them. In January of 1980, I was running a 75-mile line, trapping beaver. I had previously trapped with a friend, but this year I was trapping alone. Not the wisest thing to do since there is some risk from bad ice or injuries, and it's better to have a companion. I was alone when I made a mistake that nearly killed me. The ice around beaver lodges is very dangerous. Beavers live in their lodges and come out underwater tunnels to get food they have stored at the bottom of the river or pond through the summer, in the form of branches stuck down in the mud. Each time they come out, they let air out of their noses and it goes up to make bubbles under the surface of the ice. And this, along with the beavers rubbing their backs on the underside of the ice, keeps the ice very thin near a beaver lodge. It can be 50 below with 2 foot thick ice around the whole lake, and the ice near the lodge might be less than a quarter inch thick. I had parked the sled near a lodge and unpacked the gear needed to set a group of snares. Cookie was leading the work team of 5 dogs, and they knew the procedure completely by this time. As soon as I stopped the sled and began to unpack, they all laid down, curled their tails over their noses, and went to sleep. The process could take 2 or 3 hours, and they used the time to get rest. A rope tied the cargo to the sled. I threw the rope across the ice to get it out of the way. One end was still tied to the sled. I took a step on the ice near the rope and went through and down like a stone. You think there is time to react, that the ice will give way slowly and you'll be able to hang on to the edge, somehow able to struggle to safety. It's not that way at all. It's as if you were suddenly standing on air. The bottom drops out and you go down. I was wearing heavy clothing and a parka. It gathered water like a sponge and took me down faster. Two things saved me. One, as I went down, my hand fell across the rope I had thrown across the ice, which was still tied to the sled. Two, as I dropped, I had time to yell, scream. And the last thing I saw as I went under was Cookie's head swinging up from sleeping and her eyes locking on mine as I went beneath the surface. The truth is, I shouldn't have lived. I've had several friends killed in just this manner, dropping through the ice while running dogs, and there wasn't much of a chance for me. The water was 10 or 12 feet deep. I saw all the bubbles from my clothing going up to the surface, and I tried to pull myself up on the rope. My hand slipped, and I thought in a wild mental scream of panic that this is how it would end. Then the rope tightened. There was a large new knot on the end, and it tightened and started pulling up. When the knot hit, I grabbed and held, and the dogs pulled me out of the hole and back up onto the ice. There was still very little time. I had a quart of white gas stove fuel on the sled for emergencies, and I threw it on a pine tree nearby and lit a match and set the whole tree on fire. And and that's where you're going to have to find out exactly what happened. But you will see that Cookie was a huge savior and somebody who really, really, really helped Gary Paulson um, overcome something, as well as many of the other dogs that you will see in this book, including Snowball, and you'll get to meet other dogs as well, including there was another one. Ike is one of my favorites. So there's a variety of different dogs. Rex is another dog that you're going to get to meet. So this one leads a little bit on a cliffhanger, but I highly recommend this book if you're a Gary Paulson fan, if you love nature, and especially if you love animals, because it's really going to tug at your heart in some places, make you cry in some, and absolutely make you laugh in other places. All right, guys, hope you consider checking this book out. Have a great day.